Movies convey different worlds, and wines do exactly the same.
The TCM Wine Club. Every case is expertly curated with informative tasting notes and recommended pairings with great classic movies seen on TCM.
One of the perks of being a wine club member is access to some exclusive movie-related wines.
As part of a special welcome offer, enjoy 15 delicious wines for an incredible value. The TCM Wine Club. Join now at tcmwineclub.com.
Gregory Peck,
Judy Garland, Bill Powell, and Myrna Loy.
Errol Flynn.
Ford, Hawks.
fantastic director.
Best role that I ever had.
Loved every minute of it.
It's all right.
That was the one, wasn't it?
Yeah, he seems to have me spotted anyhow.
I haven't got a chance. He'll be back. Once he finds me, goodbye.
Maybe not.
Are you kidding? I can't hang out the window. And the upper berth's too small.
The best picture I made, and the one that survives and is still a very good picture, was The Narrow Margin. I shot that in 12 days. The sound of that picture is a very special thing. I used the sounds of the train as a musical score. My instructions, particularly to Charlie McGraw, was that I told him that he was under pressure all the time.
Well, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? Why'd you let him follow you? They promised me protection.
Shut up.
They said it would...
Shut up, do you hear? I got enough on my mind. It's a rotten detail, and I don't like it. I didn't like it from the start. My partner's dead, and it's my fault. He's dead, and you're alive. Some exchange.
Looking back on it, I'm surprised that RKO let me do it, but it was such a good picture that they let me have my way.
Detective Charles McGraw and target Marie Windsor are on a train bound for trouble in the narrow margin, Friday at 2 p.m., only on Turner Classic Movies.
So, Coco Chanel once said, "Fashion is not something that exists in dresses only. Fashion is in the sky, in the street. Fashion has to do with ideas, the way we live, what is happening."
Gregory Peck,
Judy Garland, Bill Powell, and Myrna Loy.
Errol Flynn.
Ford, Hawks.
fantastic director.
Best role that I ever had.
Loved every minute of it.
John Alonzo, sounder, worked with probably one of the top 5 or 6 directors in the history of motion pictures, I think. Martin Ritt. Marty will let you do what you want to do as a cinematographer. He gives you the setup, and he says, "You understand what I need and what I want?" And you say, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do." He would walk away, and he wouldn't come back until you called for him and said, "Okay, we're ready."
So here's the opening sequence of Sounder. There was no such thing as Musco lights in those days, and besides, the budget couldn't have afforded it. I'm talking Musco lights, a giant piece of lighting that lights up several city blocks and gives you the effect of moonlight. Having no shame, I called Mr. Wong Hao. I said, "Mr. Jimmy, how should I light this?" He said, "Light it any way that looks good to you. Forget about source lighting." He said, it was a very funny remark. He said, "Source lighting is for sissies. Look at HUD, you know. There's no justification where the light comes from. It's just light it what looks good to you." He warned me. He said, "Don't look for a style. Because almost every good story, really good story and good cast will generate its own style."
The TCM Backlot presents the next TCM in Your Hometown contest. Share how your city has been immortalized in Hollywood history for a chance to bring TCM to your town. Last year, Backlot fans in Tucson were treated to an exclusive screening of Rio Bravo with a conversation between Ben Mankiewicz and the film star Angie Dickinson.
That is so wonderful.
Think your hometown should be next? Become a Backlot member today. Then visit tcmbacklot.com/hometown and share your story.
He said to me, "You know, son, That's not just a flag, it's a symbol. It's a symbol for millions of people all over the world. It's all their hopes and beliefs. It's freedom and justice and all the things men fight for.
He played soldiers and sailors, cowboys and crooks, professors and presidents. But to us, Henry Fonda was Dad. He was an iconic movie star, but Dad considered himself to be just a working man, striving for perfection, honing his craft on screen and on stage. It was just the work he did.
Dad was a hands-down performer, the kind of acting where he could deliver a brilliant performance without even lifting his arms. And in many of his roles, you can see this steady tension, this rock-solid stillness that stood for justice, democratic ideals, and honest character. When Henry Fonda said something on screen, you were inclined to believe it.
You're worse than a liar. You have no sense of right or wrong, only what'll work. No, this is going to work.
You're not going to use that now?
Oh, yes, yes. I'll use anything against you. I can't let you be president.
Off-screen, Dad was quietly intense and shy, not one to use his fame to preach. He felt it was through his movies that he could make a difference, send a message.
Where did that come from?
When he was 14, for example, Dad witnessed an infamous lynching in Omaha, Nebraska. It had a profound effect on him and informed some of the roles he chose, such as Gil Carter, the loner cowboy who swept up in a mob, going after 3 suspected killers in the Oxbow incident.
If you got any doubts, Tedley, I say let's call off this party. Take him back to judge like Davies wants.
This is only slightly any of your business, my friend. Remember that?
Hanging's any man's business that's around.
If your stomach for justice is cooling, Carter, I advise you to leave now before we proceed any further.
I still don't like it. Hanging murders is one thing, but to keep guys you don't know for sure did it, stand around sweating while you shoot your mouth off, that's another.
I'm still totally amazed by him in that film. It is Dad at his best, playing himself and showing his great sense of justice. In the bar where the guilty lynch mob has gathered after committing their barbaric, dirty deed, Dad reads aloud a letter written by one of the hanged men addressed to his widow. You don't see Dad's piercing blue eyes, just his mouth in his Midwestern cadence, delivering the lines with more sure-shot honesty than people were ready for.
There can't be any such thing as civilization unless people have a conscience. Because if people touch God anywhere, where is it except through their conscience? And what is anybody's conscience except a little piece of the conscience of all men that ever lived?
That's what my dad was all about.
As sure as he was in his convictions, my dad was also a man of contradictions. Warmth showed in his eyes, and yet he was a rather shut-down, standoffish person who hid behind his roles, expressing through them emotions he recoiled from in real life.
He may have hid behind a cast of characters, but at least it was a diverse crowd. In 1964's Failsafe, he is a steady, principled president struggling to prevent an accidental nuclear exchange.
Colonel Grady, this is the President of the United States. The mission you are flying has been triggered by a mechanical failure. It is a mistake. I order you and the other planes to return to your base at once. Do you hear? At once.
I can no longer receive tactical alterations by voice.
I know that, but...
But you're telling me I've been specifically ordered not to do.
Damn it, Grady, this is the President!
Then 5 years later, Dad starred in Once Upon a Time in the West. I thought he was magnificent, turning his own squeaky clean image on its ear.
I only told you to scare them.
People scare better when they're dying.
Here was Henry Fonda, an American icon of integrity and moral value, playing one of the most despicable characters you ever saw. It flipped everyone out, even Dad.
Just over a decade later, I was so grateful for the experience of On Golden Pond with him. I believed that in his role as Norman Thayer, he would finally win the Oscar. And even though Dad never particularly liked awards, oh, I wanted that so much to happen for him. Those moments we shared on screen as father and daughter a relationship that so closely paralleled our own, were such a blessing and more meaningful than I can fully express.
I want to be your friend.
Oh. This mean you come around more often? Mean a lot to your mother?
Because he was sick, I accepted for him the Academy Award for Best Actor. It was the happiest moment of my life. Even though Dad wasn't the perfect father, he gave me plenty. A respect for integrity and character, compassion for the poor and marginalized, and an overwhelming urge to speak truth to power.
You can't suppress ideas, Mr. Keller, just because you don't like them. Nobody can, not in this country, not yet.
And he gave me and my children a respect and love of the land. He did his best to be a good father to us. I loved him very much.
Dad was the epitome of the American everyman, and I miss the man who wore many honorable masks of the American character. Masks of a Steinbeck rebel, of honest men trying to bring nobility to government, and of a nameless man standing his ground in a sweltering jury room. No, Dad wasn't perfect, but to the world, he was a quiet, humble hero. For Turner Classic Movies, I'm Peter Fonda.
And I'm Jane Fonda.
During the silent period, filmmakers were really pushing the boundaries of visual storytelling. It was forming public opinions about women's roles, about race, about class. There were Black filmmakers, there were women directors. The first decades are revolutionary. The language of cinema is developing during this period. I'm Jacqueline Stewart. Join me for Silent Sunday Nights at midnight on TCM.
Oh, Jerry, don't let us ask for the moon. We have the stars.
Oh, fashion rules are meant to be broken, absolutely. There's no question about that. And what's more fun than breaking the rules? And if you don't know what the rules are, then you're just flailing about in the dark. So know the rules and break them.
I'm not sure whether I actually made the connection between fashion and film, but what I loved about film was how it looked, especially the clothes. I think all rules are meant to be broken, fashion especially.
I think that Hepburn and Garbo and Dietrich, they carried their masculinity as a badge of strength. They were not going to be boxed in by a skirt, by a corset, by high-heeled shoes that you can't move in. They were not going to be made into something they were not sexually and not in their clothing, on screen or off.
When we're thinking of actresses like Dietrich and Garbo and Hepburn, we have to understand that they were women who asserted their own personal style at a moment when the studio system really was a star factory, and they were churning out movie stars pretty much with manufactured personas. And so for these women to go in and retain a sense of individual taste amidst all of that really speaks to their sense of self, and I think is the reason why we continue to be so taken with them even today.
Nothing like independence, is there?
Marlene Dietrich bought her suits, her men's suits, at Nietzsche in Vienna And whether her lover was male or female, everyone received a suit made to order at Nietzsche. When she worked with the great costume designer, Travis Banton, at Paramount, they made many, many movies together. And Banton made her fabulous tuxedos that are in her great Paramount films.
Marlena just looks fantastic in the menswear, but she was absolutely tiny. I mean, if you actually look at her costumes, and I've seen that actual outfit in a museum in Berlin, and it's minute, and it probably is what looks good.
Well, I love menswear too, but there's more to it than our great silver screen wearers of menswear. Joseph von Sternberg, her director, was meeting with a group of exhibitors. This was during the golden age of Hollywood, sometime in the early 30s. And these exhibitors from all over the country complained to von Sternberg about Dietrich's clothes. And they said, "Are you trying to put our wives in trousers?" Von Sternberg refused to cut the moment, of course, out of Dietrich's films. But it was very revolutionary of him at that time to keep it and to defend Dietrich.
I seem to have the unhappy faculty of causing trouble wherever I go.
For me, the allure is simple. It's about the counterpoint. It's about the opposites. It's a fantastic combination when the chemistry is right.
I must admit I'm partial to dressing a woman in trousers because women do wear trousers and they have worn them forever. And I think obviously we have to show all the different facets of a woman's character. And you know, it's something about, you know, okay, strong women wear dresses as well, but it's great to have women in pants, it always is.
With Garbo, it's quite different. Garbo's clothes were, her clothes that she wore at home were all very quiet. She is someone who lived in shirts and trousers and plain Oxford shoes. She never dressed up in person.
I'm gonna live like a real woman. Perfectly simple, perfectly quiet, perfectly happy. Yes, madame, yes.
Her creative collaborator, Adrian, the great costume designer at MGM, created the most exotic costumes for her on screen, and she wore them beautifully. But there couldn't have been a greater difference between her own personal closet and these exotic flowers she portrayed on film.
Don't make an issue of my womanhood.
Diane Keaton and Katharine Hepburn, they personify what it's like to be a woman in menswear and really own the look and be perceived as being authentic in those looks. There are no two people better.
Hey, you're not gonna wear those pants.
Not pants, they're slacks. Watch your language.
Katharine Hepburn, a famous sportswoman, a famous golfer, an aviatrix, a swimmer. She could do anything. She was an outdoors woman. And so pants or trousers were something that she wore natively, always looking fabulous in these trousers.
Katharine Hepburn could blend in with a crowd, in a manner of speaking. You have this refined, very feminine woman, and when she dons menswear, how sexy and alluring does she look?
Oh, we're going to talk about me, are we? Goody.
Kent State University in Ohio now has Katharine Hepburn's closet. Well, her clothes consisted of dozens of the same shirts and dozens of the same trousers.
You know what I mean? Read in the magazines that you play golf.
On occasion.
Well, how about 9 holes?
Now, Mr. Hughes?
If it would be convenient, Miss Hepburn.
For Kate Blanchett as Katharine Hepburn in The Aviator, obviously I looked at as many images of the real Kate Hepburn as possible. And as opposed to sort of replicating exactly or making exact copies of things she was wearing, I did my version of them, or a version that would work on Kate. So you look at Kate and you can see that she's representing Katharine Hepburn, but isn't Katharine Hepburn, if you like. It's sort of the Kate Blanchett version of the Kate Hepburn look.
Aren't we a fine pair of misfits?
In the case of Diane Keaton and Annie Hall in particular, it's who she is.
I love what you're wearing.
Oh, you do? Yeah? Oh, well, it's, this tie is a present from Grammy Hall.
And she pays attention. It's not just any tie, it's a bulky tie, and it's a certain shirt collar, and it's every single detail. And in my view, it only belongs to Diane Keaton. And that's to Diane Keaton's credit, quite frankly, that she is so authentic that she's the only one who can really pull this off.
Oh, well. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la.
I think the lasting impact of these actresses wearing menswear-inspired styles gave visibility to fashion that began to challenge the gender binary at a time when that was not the norm.
How's my tie?
Wow. You didn't tell me you were wearing something like that.
Of course, today, we are finally seeing the question of gender and gendered fashion take hold, and we're starting to see the deconstruction of those concepts for the first time in a very long time.
I mean, you wear that suit to a business meeting and you'll be the badass in the room.
You look at the history of art in general, painting, sculpture, and fashion, they're all inextricable. And I love that about fashion today. And I don't think fashion will ever retreat from this gender fluidity. People don't want constraints. They don't want to be held back. And it's wonderful that you can just be whoever you want to be.
Cheers! Uncork the fun of movies and wine with the TCM Wine Club. Delicious wines from around the world delivered to your door.
I'm Eddie Muller for the TCM Wine Club, and I'm here today with brother and sister Andre and Tanaya Darlington, authors of the movie night menus. You're normally chefs, but today you're cocktailians.
Occasionally, I always drink too much.
We're gonna show you how to make a New York Sour, which is a fantastic cocktail.
Drink it.
It's essentially a whiskey sour, and it has a red wine float on top.
I noticed what the wine is that you're using in this today. Our own Noir Alley Pinot Noir. Fantastic.
And we'll explore that remarkable drink.
So we're starting with a ½ ounce of simple syrup, and when you're making a cocktail, you always use the least expensive ingredient first, so that you don't burn good booze if you make a mistake.
I'll take the lemon juice.
This is now fresh squeezed lemon juice. Andre's going to use an ounce of that, and then the third one is whiskey. This is 2 ounces of whiskey.
And give it a good shake.
Oh, man.
Just straining the drink.
And now for the pièce de résistance, we use the Noir Alley Pinot Noir.
We're gonna float on top of this cocktail.
So he's suspending the wine over the drink by floating it over the back of a spoon.
I like
Voila.
That's gorgeous.
A New York Sour.
Fine host. 2 more of the same.
The Noir Alley Pinot Noir, part of the TCM Wine Club. Every case is expertly curated with informative tasting notes and recommended pairings with great movies seen on TCM. Your first shipment is a 12-bottle assortment from top vineyards worldwide, plus 3 bonus classic movie wines.
This is great. You guys have to start making them for yourself. You got to catch up.
Absolutely.
We got to catch up.
The TCM Wine Club. For more information, visit tcmwineclub.com or call 1-844-WINE-TCM.